Hello and welcome everyone to today's episode. Today we are going to be covering the following topics. All the timestamps are in the description below. And I hope you enjoy today's episode. So let's get started on these topics. I'm going to show you how to set up Visual Studio Code for C# in a few steps. So first, I've opened up Visual Studio Code. This is the start screen. I have previously worked with PowerShell, but I have not worked with C#. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and you can see there is C# there. That's just a folder. So what I've done is go to File, Open folder. So here, as you can see, I have a C# folder and I'm just going to select that C# folder. There's nothing in it, just empty. I'm going to select that folder and that's why you see C# there. So now I'm going to click on New File and I'm just going to type hello.cs. As soon as we've added it, notice that it's added C# icon. So this is without installing anything. So if you press enter, and now you can see a message has popped up down here. Do you want to install the recommended C# dev kit extension from Microsoft for the C# language? So this is what you need to install to get it C# to work with Visual Studio Code. So if I click install here, this will take me to the extensions tab here, and notice that it's saying installing. So this is directly from Microsoft, and you can see how many 9 million downloads there. And it's saying, do I want to connect my Microsoft account? So in this instance, I'll just simply not set it up. I'll just click close in there, and then I can set up my environment. So I'm just going to scroll down here and then down here. So when you get this option here, so we don't want to set up an account, but we'll skip that bit as it's not needed. We'll just set up our SDK here. So install .NET SDK, and it'll take you to here. So this is .NET 9, and I'm going to click install. So this is now installing the SDK. It says here, if I expand this, you may be asked for permissions to complete this installation. So let's see if it needs any administration permission. Notice down here, it's saying downloading .NET. So we'll let that process finish. There is some progress down here. As you can see, it's installing various bits here. So I'm on a 64-bit system. So it's installing 64-bit dependencies, and you can see this is moving forward. And I do have this message now, which says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? So this is the .NET SDK. Yes, we do. So now this is launched and it's just installing .NET System Development Kit. So this will basically install all the dependencies needed by C# to work. So here the installation has succeeded, and you can see here that .NET collects data, user data, but you can change that setting if you really want to by doing opt out. So we'll just X out of these, and if I go back here, we can close this down. Don't need it, so we can X out. So it does say here that 3.3 load Visual Studio Code to make it effective. So if we do reload, and if we now X out of this, so let's have a look at what else remains. So I'm just going to turn that off, and if we scroll down here, so we have now done the SDK, so we mark that as complete. Open a folder, it says here, which we've opened up here. We've opened up for the C#. Create your .NET project. So here's how you first create a .NET project. So choose a project template from Command Palette to scaffold your project. Once project is created, you can view the files in the Solution Explorer. So here, you can now choose project template. So if we go here, you can see that it's added .NET project. So we're going to create a new project, and you can see it's now giving us an option of what type of project we want. So we've got MAUI, we've got an Android application, Java, and what we really want, we go ASP.NET. So we'll do console application, and it's asking us to give a name. So we'll just call it first app, and then we're going to press enter to confirm. And where do we want this? So it says it's going to create a folder called first app, or we can choose another directory. So we'll go with the default. That's where we want it, and it's saying solution file format. So we're just going to go with solution, the first one, and then it's going to create the project. So create the project. So that is created. It says here the active document is not part of a workspace, so that's fine. We'll just X out of that. So here we've got our first app solution. So you can see all the settings for the solution. But if you expand this here, you can see this is the folder within this folder, C#, and we go first app, and then we've got the program file here. And you can see it's doing a console write line here, hello world. So if I run this here, so you can see the project is building, and after it's built, it's created a hello world output here because this is the console application, and all it does is write to the console. So this is how you get your Visual Studio Code to work with C#, and those were the steps. So just in summary, what we did, so we created a hello.cs file, which automatically triggered Visual Studio Code to recommend an extension, and that extension was called C# dev kit. And after we installed that, it then recommended we install the SDK, which we followed and installed that as well. And then we created a new project by following the guidance at the beginning. And again, if I X out of all this, and if I minimize this here, you can see this is the folder that we were in, C# and the first app here. But down here, you can see there is a Solution Explorer, and you can see we've got our first app and first app here, and you can see the programs here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your first C# project. Please check my previous video if you want to know how to install C# on your computer so that Visual Studio Code allows you to create C# projects. So to go your Visual Studio extension and system development kit installed. Now, in order to create the first project, on this screen, this is the welcome screen, what you need to do is go at the top here where it says search and welcome to Visual Studio Code. Click in there, then select this option, which is show and run commands. Control Shift P is the shortcut. So click onto that, then you would be presented with the following options. you can see I have recently used .NET new project. If you type .NET and then you will get .NET new project. So if you click onto that here, now it's giving you a template. The template contains a lot of scaffolding or helper files that Visual Studio Code plus the C# compiler needs for it to work. So you don't need to worry about how it's set up. This does, you wouldn't worry about how do you actually go and create an Excel file. You just click File, New Excel file, and it creates it for you. So here, what we'll do is we'll select a console application. You can see there are various different applications, but one of them is called console application. So if we select that, where do you want to create that project? So you get this file dialog box here. So in this instance, we're going to go into our C# folder. It's empty folder at the minute, nothing in it. And we're going to create a new folder. This will be our solution folder, and that's where our project will live. So we'll call it first solution. And then we're going to say select this folder. Okay. And now it's asking us, what do we want to call our application? So we're going to call it first app, and then we're going to press enter. And it's giving us the option of creating a solution file. We're going to use the second option because this is the newer option that's available. The first one is the order format. So we'll go with the newer one. Then what you can see here is it's going to create the project. Project will be created in this location, which is our first solution and first app. So we're going to click that. And now a couple of things have happened. You can see it did some processing down here, and now it's complete. And what you see here is our Explorer. So this is our folder. And within that folder, we've got our first app. That's our solution folder. And then you can see our first code file here for this program is here. If we go here, you can see the solution Explorer, and we've got our first solution. That's the solution. And you can see it's got the new file extension. And then we've got our first app here. And you can see you can expand that, and you can see the program file there as well. So this is how you can create a project in Visual Studio Code for C#. Please check my other video out in order to see how I actually installed C# support for Visual Studio Code in order to get to here. But how do you create a new solution? So if we have a look at the folder structure for this, so here we can see that I am in the C# folder, and then I've got a folder called first solution. Within the first solution, I've got another folder called first app and a file called first solution. How do you create a second solution? So ideally, any new project for the first solution should be in here. So if I go and add a new project in Visual Studio Code and call it second app, that should appear in here. Well, let's have a look how to do that. So I've got the folder open. So in the Solution Explorer, and we've got an option when we hover over the solution name to create a new project. So we'll create that. So it then asks, what do you want that new project to be? So we'll scroll down here and we can see console app. If I select that, then we project name the new project. So we'll call it second app. So there you go. We have selected the second app name. Now we're going to press enter to confirm our input. And then it's asking us, where do you want to store that? Automatically, it has recommended within the first solution, it will create a folder called second app. So if I click onto that, and it'll say project will be created in that folder. Then we don't want to change anything. So we just want to create the project. And as you can see here, it's loading. And once it's done, then we've got the second app folder here. And you can see here, we've got a second app folder. If we go back to our folder in Windows, here's our solution folder, which is the first solution. And then within here, we've got first app and second app. This is the solution file. And in second app, we've got all the objects to do with the second app. So how do you go about creating a new solution in here? So in order to do that, what you can do is in Windows itself, go and create a new folder, and we'll call it second solution. So we have now created a blank folder called second solution. Now going back to Visual Studio Code, what you want to do is open that folder. So we'll go file, open folder, select the second solution. And once we are in here, you can see that it's empty. We don't even have the Solution Explorer. So now we need to create a new solution and a project inside it. So you go to the second solution search box at the top, then select this option, which is Control-Shift-E, or you can just click on it. So click onto that. Then because you have recently used .NET new project, you need to click onto that. Don't click on open solution. That's not the option we want. We want the new project option. You can search for that by typing in .NET, and it will come up if it's not in the recently used. So we'll select that, and then it says what type of project we want. So we want a console application. So we'll go down here, and we've got the console app, and then it asks us to name the application. So this is our first application in the second solution. So just to differentiate the name. So now we can confirm this by pressing enter, and then it says it will create it in this folder, which is second solution over here and first app in second solution. So we'll go and create that. We'll select the newer version of the solution file, and then we'll finally confirm this. So you can now see that a few things are happening. It's loading and it's finished now. So we've got our first app in the second solution, and but we also have the Solution Explorer. So in this Solution Explorer, you can see this is our project, and you can see that that's how it's been created under this solution. That's the solution. So if we look at our Windows structure now, so that was our first solution. We'll go first app, second app. Then in the second solution, we have the first app, second in the second solution file exist. So now we have two solution files. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a solution of two projects and then run one of those projects and swap between them. So I've got Visual Studio Code open, select open folder. Okay, I'm now in this folder, and I've got a C# folder. So I'm going to click in there. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it paired solution, and it's an empty folder. Open it. I'm now going to add a new project to this folder. So I'm going to click here at the top, and then I'm going to click on to show and run commands. Then I'm going to click on new project. If you don't have that option in the recently used, search for net and you will get new project. I'm going to select a console application. So I've got the console application here. I'm going to give it a name of first app. I'm going to choose the default directory for creating it. Then I'm going to use the new solution format, and I'm going to click create project, and notice that the solution explorer has appeared at the bottom. So that's my first app. Now, in order to add another one, I'm going to go on to the solution itself, click this little plus, this search box comes up again. I'm going to add another console application, call it second app, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to choose the default directory, and I'm going to click create project, and both projects are now created. So how do you run the first one and the second one and swap between them? So if I open that up, you can see that this is the code for it. I'm going to change this slightly. So this is going to say hello world from first app, and I'm going to run this, and you can see the output has come from hello world from first app. So how do you run the second one? I'm going to close this down, click onto the second project, open the program file. Notice this one just says hello world, and all you need to do is just click run project associated with this file, and it will run the project for you. So that's how you swap between them. You can run both at the same time by opening the first project up again by double clicking on the program, and this one has opened up, and then you can do run, and you can see it says hello from the first app. And you can see here there are two separate distinct windows. That's for the second app, that's for the first app. So this is how you run both apps at the same time in one solution. In this video, I'm going to talk about Visual Studio extensions for C#. In my previous video, I quickly talked you through how to set up Visual Studio Code for writing C#, but in this video, we're going to discuss how all that magic happened. So let's walk through this extension. So you can see there are different icons on the side. One is Explorer, Search, Source Control, Run, and Debug, and there's one called Extension. This window you can access using Control-Shift-X, or you can just click on the icon. If we look at this bit here, a few extensions that are installed in here. So these are the installed extensions. I have 8 of them, and there are some recommended ones. So you can see recommended extensions here, but we'll just look at the installed. As we were going through our tutorial to set up Visual Studio Code for C#, one of the extensions that we installed was C# DevKit, but we didn't install C#, and we did not install .NET Install Tools. This is because when you install C# DevKit, it automatically installs the C# extension and the .NET Install tool. The reason it does that is if we click on the C# DevKit, it takes us to the page of the extension, and we can see some information about the extension, who the owner is, and so on. So if I just minimize this window over here by just clicking on it, you can see how many reviews it's had and how many downloads it has had. If we look at the dependencies for this, you can see there are 2 extensions, .NET Tool, Install Tool, and C#, and these are the 2 that appear there. So as soon as you install the C# DevKit, it automatically installs the C# language support, but this is needed in order for VSCode to work with C#, and the .NET Install Tools is an extension that basically manages the runtime and the system development kit. So that's not part of an extension. System development kit is actually installed as part of your Windows operating system or wherever you are coding. It helps you to run and deploy C# application. So it helps you build the application into a .exe file. So here, these 2, remember, are automatically installed because you installed the C# DevKit. So I hope this solves the mystery of how did I end up with the C# extension and the .NET Install Tool extension. So you only need to install C# DevKit, and it will automatically install the language support and the .NET Install Tool for you. C#. So here, what we have is a first app and a second app. But how do you switch between them, and how do you run one of the apps versus the other app? So down here, you can see I've got the Solution Explorer. This opened up automatically because we have created a solution. If you want to know more about how to create a solution and then 2 projects within one solution, check out my other video. So here, as you can see, I've got 2 apps. First app, that's one project, and then this is the second project. So if I open up the folders as well, so this is the folder explorer, and you can see I've got hello from the first app, and then if I open up the second program, you can see hello from the second app. So how do you run one or the other? It's very simple in Visual Studio Code. There isn't much effort required for manual configuration. What you can do is see your code, and then you come over here and notice what the tooltip says. Run project associated with this file. So it will automatically, because you've got the first app program.cs open, it will automatically run this project, which is the first app. So if you just run this, then you can see it will compile, and you will see here, it will say first app.exe, and it says hello from the first app. Now, in order to run the second app, you just open the file up for the second app. Notice we've got second app here. And if I run this here, you can see that we've got hello from the second app. And notice here, you've got second app.exe, and you've got the first app. So you can switch between them like this. And then you can kill the app by clicking on the bin icon if you want. So that was a very simple tutorial on how to run both applications within one solution in Visual Studio Code and how do you switch between them. them. And if you want to know more about how to create a solution and projects within Visual Studio Code, please check out my other videos. A lot of people ask me this question, which is, why is it that when I create a C# project or a program that my code ends up like this? Whereas in the past, I have seen examples like this where you need the main method and then you need a write line here, you need a class called program, and you need this namespace here. Whereas newer versions of C# just have this line, and I do not understand it. So this one over here has a proper structure. So you can see this is a class, and then within the class, you've got the main method. It's much more organized. Whereas here, you're just seeing one line of code, but there's no guidance as to how or why this works. Basically, Microsoft tried in the best attempt to make this simpler for you to learn C# quicker. So they have removed unnecessary lines of code. I think altogether, you would say about 10, 11 lines of code, curly braces, and so on. So they said, well, actually, why don't you just start your program like this? So here you've got one line. You don't need to declare a class. You don't need to declare a main method. You just basically start coding away. Behind the scenes, what the C# compiler will do is it will actually add the main method. It will add the class, and namespaces are optional. So it doesn't really have to add them. So this code works because behind the scenes, when the compiler compiles this, it will add all this for you. But Microsoft have decided you do not need to see all that. If you're new to programming, why would you want to create all this and make it more complex? Isn't this simpler? This is simpler, and you can just start coding away without having to worry about, creating a class or a method and so on. You just write your code and it runs. Because if I run this here, you can see that we do get the output and it says hello from the second app. And if I run the third app here, you will see that that also works and we get hello from the third app. Both of these produce the same output other than the string I changed here, but this one just has less code. So in summary, you just need to be aware when you write your code like this, or the C# template give you this code, this is equivalent to this. This is just an older way of and more structured way of doing it. And I would recommend learning this approach, but also be aware that behind the scenes, you're actually getting the compiler to do this for you, while this looks cleaner and easier to read, while this one looks a bit more complex. So I hope I have explained to you why we have this difference now in C#, but previously you had this structure and you might have seen it in books elsewhere and Stack Overflow. Do you know the difference between this and this? So C# basically has two types of templates. One, which is a bit more detailed like this, where you have a class and you have the main method and then you have the actual code that you want to run. And the other one is simply you start writing your code. The reason this new console template was created by Microsoft was to make coding in C# quicker, easier, and cleaner. The statement that you see here is known as a top-level statement. And one important thing to know about this is just a shortcut that Microsoft have created for you. Behind the scenes, when the compiler actually compiles this line of code, it converts this back into this format, which includes a main method, class, the namespace is optional. So here, you've got more lines of code, but this appears as though it doesn't have any structure. And the reason Microsoft did this using the top-level statements is just to make it faster for you to write small programs without having to worry about seeing the main method here and the class definition. This is a more structured approach because as you can see, when you go into the different lines, so now I'm in the main method and I am under a class called program and I'm in the file called program.cs. Here, as you can see, there is no structure as such. So for a bigger application, I would recommend using this template, and for smaller, quick applications, you can use this template. Check out my next video on how to switch between these two templates. But remember, the top-level statement that you see here, you can only have one top-level statement across your project. So here, if we go over here, you can see I only have one file called program.cs. And if I wanted to create a second copy of this for a program2.cs, then you cannot have another top-level statement like this in that program. I hope this makes sense. So check out my next video in how to switch between these two templates. So I was mentioning that Microsoft have released a new solution file format, which is slnx versus sln. So this is the solution file format, the old one which has been in Visual Studio for a long time, and we've had the new one in 2025. And the question is, do we use this format or this format? The question is, how do they compare? I have two solution files open. This is the new one. You can see the project is listed here. This is the path to the project. So this is the solution name, and then this is the actual project name. and then you have another project in here. If we look at the old format, this is what the old format looks like. So you can see there's some information around format, version, there is information around minimum studio version that it's compatible with. Then you have these GUID IDs, and then you've got this global section around release, and then some more GUID information. So this is the format that existed. As you can see, it's pretty much a text-based format. There is some structure to it. These are the properties, and then they have a value separated by an equal sign. If we look at the new format, you can see it's XML based. So you have the solution node there, and then you've got the attribute project path, and that is shown here. So this is much more simpler. You'll probably see why the information such as debug, any CPU, 64, 86, release, any CPU. Why is that information not in the new format? It's because it's unnecessary. You don't really need to specify some default values such as this, any CPU, x64, x86. It will do it for you behind the scenes. This is much more human readable format rather than this one. And because of these GUIDs and various other things, when you are trying to use a version management software such as Git, you might have problems with these, while with this one, actually, you can see what it's doing. It's human readable, and you can see when the changes will likely to happen to this file, which means you're not going to get any merge conflicts as such in your code. So going back to the question, what is the new format compared to the normal one? Then you can see it's just much more cleaner. This is pretty much all the information that you get there. There is some additional attributes and nodes that are available, but those are added as and when needed rather than by default. And as you can see, this is much more verbose, so this is much easier to read and manage. And Microsoft have released a new GitHub repository, which allows you to work with the new and the old file format. So here you can see what this Git repository does. You can see samples on how to use it and so on. So I hope this makes sense, and I've answered the question, how does it compare against the old one and what does the new one look like? So you can see it's much more simpler.